I'm Danny, and today I have my February wrap-up. I know, this is like pretty dang late because I had food poisoning, and if that isn't bad enough, as soon as I get over that, someone in my house gets the flu, and then I catch that. So it's just been like one thing after another. I usually only get sick like once a year, so that was my once. I should be good for the rest of the year, hopefully. So let's get into my wrap up, and I think I'm also going to do my TBR at the end of this one instead of splitting it up into two different videos. So the first thing I read was Halfway to the Grave by Janine Frost. This was a reread and I definitely did enjoy it. Probably not as much as I did the first time, but I still definitely really enjoyed it. I love Cat and Bones' relationship and the training and the snark, and it's just awesome. I believe I gave this one a 3-star rating this time. I think the first time I gave it a 4, and since this was a reread, I was actually able to tab it this time. Not as many tabs as I thought it was going to be, but still quite a few. But I really enjoyed it. And then I read Give the Darkness My Love by Beth Revis. This was actually the first book I read this month, not the other one. And this is about our main character, Nesta, I believe was her name. And she gets this scholarship to enter into this very prestigious school to learn alchemy. And you know from the summary that eventually she will get into necromancy, and for me this just took way too long. I actually have a book talk for this. I'm not sure if it's up yet. If it is up, I will link it in the description below. If not, it should be up soon. This has to do with her learning all about alchemy, and in this world alchemy is a mix between science and magic, though they say it's more science, though I really don't see how. I mean, because how can you take pain from a person and just by holding like a little golden cup push that pain into take the pain from the patient through yourself and into the rat? I don't understand how it's possible without magic, but they say it's more science. But either way, it definitely took way too long to get to the necromancy for me. Like, I expected it to at least come into play halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way through the book, but no, it took almost to the last few chapters before it truly started coming out. You saw it very briefly, maybe about the halfway point, and it's just like never touched on again, although Nedra is thinking about it, and then it never actually comes into play until the end of that book, and it just took way too long for me. But I did give this a 3-star rating. I did enjoy it. The necromancy was definitely a lot darker than I expected it to be, but I definitely did enjoy that about it, because while necromancy is supposed to be dark, in some books it's almost too light. While there are some dark things about it, it's definitely not as dark as you would probably expect it to be. But this was definitely darker than the average necromancy story. I did give this a 3-star rating and I did enjoy it, and this is the first book in a duology. I'm not sure at this point if I will read the second book, but it's supposed to come out later this year. I'm not sure when though. Next I have How to Claim an Undead Soul by Haley Edwards. Yes. This is the sequel to with How to Save an Undead Life, and this continues to follow Greer throughout her studies of now trying to become a fully fledged necromancer, because when she was younger she was only trained to be a necromancer's assistant, and now she's finding out that her guardian Maud actually knew she was a heck of a lot more powerful than even she does, because she can do these spells and these markings that none of the other necromancers can even copy or understand what they are, and yet for Greer they work the same as something that the common necromancer would know. So it's all about her and dealing with everything that happened to her in the first book, following her being in prison, her kidnapping, and now she's going through her schooling. And now she finds out that there's this kind of demon thing possessing someone she knows, and the person who the demon has taken a form of kind of looks like her teacher. So while she suspects it might be her teacher, she also suspects it could be someone else, because this demon can take the form of anyone it chooses. It just kind of shares a likeness with Linus. But I did guess who it was about halfway through this book, because it was kind of obvious, but if you weren't really looking for it, you could have missed it, but to me it was kind of pretty obvious. But I definitely did enjoy this, and I will be continuing on with this series, and I give this a 3-star rating. Next I read Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This is about a group of scientists who go off on this mockumentary to find mermaids. And of course they hired a whole acting crew, so models to play the mermaids and the other people on the crew to play the scientists, and plus the actual scientists who are supposed to kind of be like working in the background. Only for, while these people are on this mockumentary, for them suddenly to go missing. The company who's paying for everything stops hearing from them, so of course they send out another boat to kind of check on these people, only to find like the ship is soaked in blood, and there is some corrupted footage, but some other footage that shows everything that happened. And then about 5 years later, I want to say, they send out another crew, but this one is truly full of real scientists, all sorts of different types of biologists, more sub-biologies than I knew that there were. They're all marine biologists, but they all special in something else. Some specialize in sonar, others specialize in certain types of mammals, and I did have a problem with this. Nobody in this book seemed to have any sense of self-preservation. None at all. The people, like, when they first get there, they send down this deaf scientist in this thing they called a minnow. It's kind of just like not a submarine, but it's like a little vessel you use to dive really, really deep down, like deeper than some submarines can go. And while she's down there, she does something absolutely stupid. Since she's deaf, they send her this message, and her lights will blink to let her know that she gets a message. She reads the message, and apparently the people who were up top saw something swim past her, and they say, "Hey, could you come back, please?" Instead, she decides to go down. I do not know why they did not just tell her, "Hey, we need you to come back up. There's a problem." She would have come right back up then. I'm pretty sure. At least I hope she would have. But of course, she goes down deeper, and as she's going down deeper, I'm like, well, I know who the first person who's going to die is going to be. But it was quite obvious who the first person to die was going to be, because this person did not listen to anybody. And after she dies, you think they would go, okay, this is a little too dangerous, let's pack it up and go. Nope, they stayed there, and more people died and died and died. And I'm like, why is nobody trying to leave? I mean, I get that there are no other little boats on there that you can just take and leave, but somebody needs to talk some sense into the captain and make him leave. But no, they just kept dying. Nobody had any sort of sense of self-preservation whatsoever. And I gave this a 3-star rating only because it was kind of interesting with the whole science thing. Otherwise, this probably would have got a 2-star rating. Yeah, it was just, yeah. But I did DNF this. I think I DNF'd it. Yeah, I think I DNF'd this a little more than halfway through. And I could have probably pushed myself to finish it, but the characters were just so stupid I could not do it anymore. I may try this again. I may try this again at a later date, but I'm not completely sure at this point. Next, I read Daughter of Persephone by Helen Scott. This is a very short reverse harem romance kind of story, although I don't know if you could quite call it a romance, because while there was attraction and even some slight feelings between certain characters, I definitely would not call it love. Like, if you've read the Queen Takes Night or the Vampire Queen series by, I cannot remember her name. I will try to remember to put the name of the series and the author in the description. Those characters I could believe have love. I actually felt like those characters could be in love. Not these. While it was well written, I just didn't feel it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is about Poppy, who is out celebrating her friend's birthday, and then she sees something in one of the bathrooms while she's taking a bathroom break, and then she tells a friend, you know, I think I've drank too much, I'm gonna go home. And then the very next day she gets attacked by something, and then these guys come and rescue her and tell her that she is the latest descendant of Hades and Persephone, and that she is the rightful queen to the underworld. And it has to do with everything that comes with that, her coming to grips with it, her learning about them and her powers, because these guys are supposed to be her hellhounds. There are 3 of them. So it has to do with her learning about her powers and what her abilities are, what her responsibilities, a very light version of what her responsibilities will be, learning what she has to do to claim her throne, and learning about these three guys who are supposed to be basically they are Cerberus. But there are four of them. There are three of them to start with. She learns about them, and then of course, because this is a reverse harem romance, she gets into a relationship with, at this point, two of the guys, because one of the third guy is kind of standoffish, and she isn't sure why until later on in the book, though to me it's completely stupid why he's doing it. And then she learns that she has to not only claim her hellhounds, which are the three guys, she also has to take her two judges, and then there is also, and because she is some sort of special queen, there's actually a last step she needs to do, which she does do in this book, and that is claim her fourth hellhound. And she is told this by the goddess Persephone herself. Persephone and Hades are not dead. They just spend most of their time on Olympus, since their descendants now take care of the underworld. So it was pretty good. Not as great as I was hoping, but it was still pretty good, and I will continue on with this. And I gave this a 3.5 star rating. So for my last book, I let my friends on Goodreads decide. I did a poll for which book will be my final book of the month, and they chose An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This has to do with our main character Isabel, who is a master painter at the age of 17, I believe, and she is hired by the Autumn Prince to paint him, but then she paints him with human sorrow in his eyes, and it's about the repercussions of that. Of course, I've heard many people describe this as a kind of retelling of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I've heard people say that this is what A Court of Roses should have been. That last one I definitely don't agree with, although I will admit there is a lot of similarities, such as both of our main characters being paintings. One of them is her job, the other one is her hobby. Both of them get taken to a fairy court by the ruler of a fairy court. That is true, although you actually never make it to the autumn court in this book. You go through, you go pretty briefly through summer, and then you very briefly see the winter court, though they never enter it, and then they spend a good chunk of this book in the spring court. Surprising. But you never actually make it to the autumn court. And so our main characters, it spends most of the book passing through different fairy courts, trying to make it to the autumn court from the, I want to say human world, but there's not exactly a human world. There are villages throughout this world, human villages throughout the courts, and hers, and because the Alder King currently rules, and he is the ruler of the summer court, that's what most of the world is set in, is summer. And so other than summer, the seasons don't change, because the seasons in the part of the world where the humans, the seasons in the part of the world where the humans live depends on who rules the Alder Court, and that is the Alder King. And he is the ruler of the summer court, so the world is set in permanent summer. They have never seen the leaves turn orange and gold from the color of autumn. So of course when she sees these new courts, she's absolutely fascinated, and she wants to remember them so she can paint them. And so, like I said, most of the book has to spend with our characters going from court to court to make it to the autumn court, dealing with different fairy beasties along the way. And Rook, as I said, he is the Autumn Prince. He is the one that she was meant to draw the painting of, and because she painting him with human sorrow in his eyes, it puts not only his throne but his life in danger, because the fairies will not have someone who they consider weak ruling their throne, and instead of simply replacing him with someone else who they want as the Autumn Prince, they will actually kill him and then replace him. So yeah, they are pretty brutal, and I don't agree that this is what A Court of Thorns and Roses should have been, because I definitely enjoyed that a lot more than this. Though this does span out the world a bit more, so you get to see more of the other courts, not just one as was in A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I definitely prefer A Court of Thorns and Roses to this one. Rook is funny and arrogant, and he almost kind of reminds me of Tamlin, but without some personality issues, such as a very short temper. He does not have a very short temper. They get into these little bickering spats all the time. They're absolutely hilarious, and the fairies, because they cannot lie, are quite literal. So when she says something like, there's a part where she says, if I don't eat something soon, I'm going to die. Of course she means like she's starving to death. She needs to eat something now. He assumes that she means if I don't eat something right now, I'm gonna die. So he runs off, grabs a rabbit, brings it back to her, and is waiting for her to start chowing down. And she's like, I can't eat it like this. And he's like, why not? It's a perfectly good rabbit. And she's like, oh God. So the very little things like that things get lost in translation a lot between them, and it's hilarious to see his reaction to them. And you find out that there is actually something not only threatening the human world but the fairy world as well. It's some sort of rotting disease that's not only started, that has already almost consumed all of the spring court, but is now leaking into autumn and spring. But I did very much enjoy this. I enjoyed their relationship, the lost in translation moments, the different worlds, the different types of magic and glamours that the Fae can do. And I gave this a 3-star rating, and I definitely will. And this book kind of like depended on whether or not I read her next book that is coming out later this year, which is a Sorcery of Thorns or something like that. I think it's called The Sorcery of Thorns, and because I did enjoy this one so much, I will definitely be reading that one. And I think it's actually longer than this one, because this one, although it is short, at certain parts it does drag, so it does feel longer than it actually is. I was a little disappointed by the ending. It felt a little anticlimactic, but I still did enjoy it. And I gave this a 3-star rating. Okay, now for my TBR. So currently I am reading The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I did not read the back of this. I did not get a summary at all. I just heard a bunch of people talk about this as a great science fiction, and I felt kind of spacey. So I decided to read this, and it starts off with our main character, Rosemary, although I do not believe that's her real name, because she's actually running and pretending to be someone else. Not like stealing someone else's identity, but more like creating a whole different identity. Something happened where she's from, and all you know is it's something bad, and that she has to get away, and that she does not want people to know who she is. She gets and because she did graduate from this school, I'm guessing she truly did, because she does seem to know all the ins and outs of her field. She graduates from this school, and then she gets this job on this ship that's called a tunneler. Basically, they punch holes in space to lead like one part of space to another. So basically, it's like I can't think of what the dang name of the thing is. It's like where you go through one part of space and then you end up on the completely other different side of space. And so she seems to know the ins and outs of her job. I'm only about 50 pages in at this point, but I am enjoying it so far. Then we have our wrapped book of the month, and the hint on this is YA, dystopian, and fantasy. So a YA dystopian fantasy. And it's paperback. I do not know what this is. I can't think of I think I only have very few dystopians, and I can't think of one that I would categorize as a dystopian fantasy. Let's just unwrap it. Oh, okay. I wouldn't call this a fantasy. Well, I guess it could be a fantasy. Okay, so I have Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider. This is okay, I actually pretty much remember this one by heart, so I don't have to read the summary. Though our main character's name I do not know. Lena, I think it's pronounced. It's either Yelena or Lena. I don't know which. So our main character Lena is convicted of killing someone, and I've heard that she did kill someone because he tried to assault her in some way, and then I've heard that she did not kill him, but that she's still gonna take this this kind of lengthy way out. Basically, she's offered the position to be the High Commander's poison tester, meaning she tastes all his food and his drink before he does to detect whether or not it's been poisoned, because the last poison taster has died, and she is offered this job. So of course she takes it, and she is going through the training to be the Commander's poison tester. That's all I really know about this one, and I got this one for my birthday quite a few years ago. Let's see. What year did it come out? Because I remember it had been out for a few years before I got it for my birthday. see, what year did it come out? Came out in 2005, which means I would have been 15 at the time. So I'd say maybe I got this for my 18th birthday. Could have been. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Next, I have two books that are in the same series: A Discovery of Witches and Shadow of Night. This one I've actually already read, but I want to reread it. Although I don't think I really have to. I kind of want to recap this so that I can remember everything that's going to be happening in this, because I read the book and then I watched the TV show a few months later, and I think I pretty much remember all the main stuff, but I want to just kind of read it again. Plus I'll be able to tab it this time around, and then I'll read this and tab this. This is about our main character, Diana, who is a very reluctant witch, whose powers are never seen to act right and come out when she does not want them to. And she ends up finding this very ancient tome called Ashmole 782, and then all the other supernatural creatures in the community want her to get it for them. The witches want her to get it because they don't want anyone else to have it. The vampires want her to get it because they want to know, because it supposedly holds their origin, while the witches believe it is the origin of while it is like the first magical book ever, the vampires believe it holds their origins, as do the demons, and the witches don't want any of them to have it because the vampires believe that the witches will be able to undo them with this, and the witches believe that they will be able to undo vampires, and the demons just want to know where they come from. That's pretty much it. But it gets a whole lot bigger than that, and this is full of all sorts of historical facts. I'm glad I did not know that before I went into this, because I think with knowing how historical this would have been, I might have put it off even longer, but I didn't, and I found it absolutely fascinating, and I love the romance between them. And then I will continue on with its sequel after that. So that is my wrap up for February and my TBR for March, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!